This is Matthew Marshall from Portugal.net, and you're listening to the Seleção podcast.
Simões bending one for Torres. Eusebio. Oh my word! Have you ever seen anything like that?
Bem jogado por Simão, a passar por dois adversários. Simão a tentar oferecer o golo a Figo e a bola é golo! O golo de Figo!
Rui Costa já acreditou, vai tirar para o golo, atira, golo! 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 Cristiano Ronaldo, vai para Cristiano Ronaldo! Bateu, golo, 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 golo! Chuta! Gol!
From the José Batista podcast desk, we welcome you to episode number 105 of the Seleção podcast. We are a proud partner of Portugal.net. My name is Danny Pinto. I am your host, and we thank you guys once again for tuning into the podcast, whether you are listening to us on any of the podcasting platforms that are available to you, whether it be Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or any podcast aggregators that you guys might be listening to and subscribing to. We appreciate the patronage there. Obviously, if you are watching us on YouTube, thank you for making YouTube your way of letting us know how you like to watch the show. So go ahead and click the like button, hit the subscribe button, hit the notification button, and all this stuff is free. It's a great way to support the podcast, and it makes our show more available and more visible to viewers and listeners like yourselves. We, of course, are coming off of two wins in the World Cup qualifying as the road to 2026 is in full bore here. 2 wins on the road, which is important with just a 6-game qualification. 3 of the last 4 are going to be at home, but a win in Armenia, a 5-0 win against Armenia, and then a 3-2 comeback victory for the Seleção, and 6 points on the board out of 6. Based on that solely, it's a good start, but boy, that Hungary game did leave a lot to be desired, and we'll talk about that here on episode number 105 with our guest from Portugal.net. Boots on the ground, as always, Matthew Marshall. But before we bring Matthew on, again, follow us on all our social medias. Just to type in the Seleção podcast. We're on X, Twitter, we're on Instagram. We have a Facebook page. Bookmark our website, seleçãopod.com. Email us, seleçãopod@gmail.com. And, of course, you can always reach out to me on my personal social medias. Just type in the word, all one word, Mr. DPP. That's MISTERDPP. But without further ado, let's bring in the man who, again, boots on the ground, as always, for Portugal.net. And that would be Matthew Marshall, who I believe is in a did you go visit Harry Potter or something in that background? What explain to us what the background is for our viewers on YouTube? But of course, Matthew, welcome back to the show. Always appreciate your time, bud.
Thanks, mate. Nice to be back. I think the last time we spoke, I was sitting in my van in somewhere in a McDonald's car park in Germany with a ridiculous hay fever going on. So nice to be in a more familiar place right now. But yeah, I went to Armenia about a week before the game, mate, and got my rent-a-car and cruised around, and really you're just seeing monastery after monastery, but yeah, they're quite spectacular. And yeah, that's the picture there to celebrate best of Armenia, mate.
Do you know the specific monastery that you are in front of right now?
I can't remember. It's I know it starts with an S. I stayed just a few minutes to walk from there with a nice old Russian lady who made me some nice food. Honestly, I'd have to look through the names. They're not easy to pronounce. But this is one of the ones right up the north of the country, mate. Really close to the Georgian border. You're actually closer to Tbilisi than you are to Yerevan. Up in the north, it's quite mountainous and green. Down in the south, it's really dry. You feel like you're in a bit of a desert. So pretty interesting contrast. But yeah, Armenia's got an interesting history, pretty sad history. But if you ever get the chance to go there, I think it's opening up now. More people are becoming aware of it. Quite a lot of tourists cruising around. So it's an interesting place to go. And one of the places that's still pretty cheap, mate. So nice place to go if you're watching your wallet.
Yeah, if you get your money to go as far as it can, that's always a plus. But in terms of going as far as you can, Portugal trying to get as far as they can through qualifying to get to 2026, the World Cup next year in North America, the States, Canada, and Mexico. 2 wins so far, Matthew, in qualifying. The qualifying in terms of the opponent with respect to Armenia and Hungary and Ireland in the next phase here in October, but it should be an easy qualification in terms of just our quality against everyone else's quality. But if you can kind of just give me a general kind of feeling that you've gotten through these first 2 games, and then we'll kind of get into the specifics of the Armenia and Hungary matches. But just a general feeling coming off of these last 2 matches.
Yeah, pretty confident. Obviously the winning the Nations League was really important. I actually asked Martinez after the first match if he'd noticed a change in mentality or confidence in the squad after winning the Nations League, and his answer was that he noticed a change after Germany scored, which I thought was quite interesting. He noticed that was a bit of a shift in his team. But yeah, I mean, the first game was dominant, and the second game, still dominant with all the statistics, and that obviously a little bit interesting with João Cancelo coming up with the goal late on after Hungary had equalised. But overall, 2 away games to start the qualification campaign. We'd never done it easy in Armenia. We'd played there 3 times, never done it easy. 2 draws and then winning by 1 goal. So to completely crush them was great. And even Hungary, that's a difficult place to go to. That stadium is impressive, and it's loud, man. They give it. So it's pretty hostile atmosphere. And, to come away with 2 away games with 6 points, especially what's happened with the other results in the group, honestly, it's basically in the bag without getting sort of too overconfident. So overall, I'm sure we'll get into the second game, but 6 points, it's done, mate. So confident that we'll get that ticket to USA, Mexico, Canada, whatever. Where is it? I don't know.
Well, there are rumors. I don't know if you saw this while you were covering the team, but there is a rumor that the March international window, Portugal may be coming to the States to take on Mauricio Pochettino's United States side in Atlanta. So that could be happening, but I don't think there's been any confirmation. Excuse me, from the FPF side of things. But we'll talk FPF for sure later.
I heard rumors about that, so it's probably I'll book it in, mate. It's just a matter of.
Have you heard anything about Mexico in that same window?
No, but I heard some rumors about they're going to go over to the USA, so I'd lock it in. It's just a matter of which dates it will be.
All right, Matthew says it's a go, so buy your tickets, everybody. Let's start with the Armenia game, and you mentioned going there, not always an easy task in terms of the result. 2 draws and a win, but obviously a 5-0 victory coming off of the Nations League, I thought was a great way for this team to start. Obviously, the first match without Diogo Jota, and I just can't wait to see what that first match at home is going to be like in October against Ireland. But the first match without Diogo Jota, the emotion of all of that. In terms of the starting 11, I have a feeling, and again, and this is with Diogo Jota now, obviously, unfortunately, no longer with us and not being able to play anymore. But could you argue that starting 11 might be maybe the strongest, maybe the best starting 11 that Portugal puts out in terms of the collective group right now, or is that maybe too much to say there?
No, you nailed it, mate. I think that's basically Portugal's strongest 11. I've always thought that Rafael Leão should be coming off the bench. The only guy that you could maybe squeeze into that side would be Bernardo Silva, but we know that Martinez really likes Pedro Neto, and João Felíx justified his starting spot here. He's been in good form since he went to Saudi Arabia. I went close to picking this one. I think I didn't have Felix in there, which when I looked back, it was a bit stupid. So this is basically, I would say, Portugal's strongest 11, and they justified that with just completely crushing Armenia. Their best player, the captain, he didn't do anything. They completely shut him down. So yeah, I reckon pretty much close to full strength, mate. This team, and if we get to World Cup, you'd be seeing very close to this in the opening game.
One of the things that Roberto Martínez has been known for since taking over, and he said so right in his introductory press conference when he was hired in January of 23, was roster flexibility, tactical flexibility. I did a little research. I don't know if it is spot on. It's just one of those, I'm looking at stuff. I'm marking it down with the old pen and paper here, but 32 matches under Martinez. He's got 25 wins, I believe, 5 losses, 2 draws. I think the math comes out to that. But of those 32 matches, 23 different lineups, and I don't believe he's ever used the same lineup the same way, or 2 consecutive games he's never had the same lineup. As maddening as that could be, do you find that as a positive or do you find that as a negative? Because we'll go to the Hungary game here in a minute, but just in terms of the manager, just in terms of covering the team, what are your thoughts on having so many different lineups so many different times?
I mean, you have to look at the fact that these games come really close together, and a lot of the time when he gets these teams, they've been coming off pretty brutal schedules for their club. So there's so many fitness type concerns. It's quite difficult for him to play the same team twice. But I'd like to see a bit more continuity, especially in a situation like this where you're really dominant against Armenia. But this is what Martinez has always done. It seems like sometimes it's like he treats some games like they're almost friendlies or something, where he's trying things, and it's been like that the whole time. But the way I've seen football throughout all the matches I've been is that the best thing a manager can do is try and get to his strongest starting 11 and just stick with it and just give them as much time to gel and build into a cohesive unit. So it's a bit difficult to answer. Like I said, it's difficult for him because there's just so much going on fitness-wise, and for him wanting to try different players in different positions. So you can kind of see it from both sides.
And a good problem to have, too, is having the amount of talent, I guess, to choose from as well, where, sometimes a manager may only have that 11, 12, 13 kind of real good core group, whereas Portugal is deeper, is as deep as any team in the international soccer world. But yeah, continuity is one thing for sure. But I guess having the ability to have flexibility, I guess, is also a good thing too.
Yeah, sure. And that's what Fernando Santos used to say all the time. He says, I can't pick everyone, and you could argue that Portugal's squad is even better now. So Martinez has a similar issue. But I think that starting side you saw against Armenia is pretty close. You might just see, maybe depending on what happens with Antonio Silva and Inacio form-wise, but that's a long way away. The World Cup's still, what are we, 8 months or something. So, but yeah, I think we've got a pretty good gauge into what really should be Portugal's starting side, really because of João Neves. It's just incredible. Been watching him. I saw him for the under 21s. I talked to him a couple of times in Georgia, and I told Tom, seems like about 2 or 3 years ago. I told Tom at the time, João Neves will captain Portugal. He'll be the captain of Portugal at some point. So for him to come into this team so quickly, and of course he's gone to PSG and he's got that partnership with Vitinha, that's just gold. So those 2 players really locking down the midfield is a big plus for Portugal. So really, really excited to see how that goes moving forward.
We're talking with Matthew Marshall of Portugal.net. You, of course, can follow Matthew on Twitter, on X, at Noobs Corp. That's NOOBZCORP. As I try to clear my throat here as quickly as possible. There it is. All right. The last thing I want to talk about in terms of the 2 things. One, I thought the pitch was dangerously bad. I saw just a bunch of whether they were trying to cut or trying to take a different direction. I thought the pitch would just come up and almost look like they had lain the pitch maybe just for this game maybe a little too late, and hadn't had a chance to kind of have the seeds and roots and everything kind of settle into the ground there. But I thought the pitch was dangerously bad, and I'm glad that we didn't have any kind of repercussions from that. Both teams, obviously. But the one thing that I took from the Armenia match, well, a couple of things, was the I guess the reemergence of two players in terms of João Felíx and João Cancelo. Cancelo, very confident, always been confident in his skills and his abilities. Obviously, the game winner against Hungary in the next match, he had a tremendous international window. But even though he only played one of the matches, started one of the matches and came in late in the second. I thought that this international window for João Felíx, getting the start against Armenia, playing as well as he did, and now getting the amount of time at a club level that he is, I think that this is maybe the most important time of his career with the Seleção, because the talent's always been there. And I even saw a comparison, and I forget where it was on Twitter, but there's just in terms of ability and what they've done for the national team at this point in their careers, there's almost like a comparison between Felix and Ricardo Quaresma, where all the talent in the world just hasn't been able to put it together yet. And then Quaresma obviously was great with the national team in 2016 on the way to winning the Euros. But what were your thoughts of how confident João Felix looked, and the impact that João Cancelo can have if he's playing at his best level?
Yeah, it's obvious that João Felix is an incredibly talented player. Confidence is something that affects different players in different ways. Like Ronaldo is just always confident all the time. He doesn't need to sort of get confidence from anywhere else, whereas some players, maybe they need it from the manager. And I think that's what Martinez has tried to do with him. I've seen him have some really great games for Portugal. Really been up close to watch him do his thing. So yeah, it was great to see him get the start here and reward Martinez with a couple of goals and a pretty strong performance. Of course, people are going to say it's just Armenia, like they will say, with a lot of these performances in the qualifiers and things like that. But he couldn't have done much more. I was a bit surprised he didn't start in the second game. Of course, he wanted to bring in Bernardo Silva, but probably could have left Neto on the bench maybe. But that's all obviously in hindsight. But yeah, if he keeps doing well in Saudi Arabia and has a few more good games in the qualifiers, and who knows, these friendlies, whatever, it wouldn't be a surprise if he has a big impact in the World Cup. That's certainly possible. And João Cancelo, yeah, I asked Martinez about him in a press conference after that game in Hungary. You can read his answer in my report there. But we all know his class too, don't we? So the similar stories in some ways, these two players. They both bounced around different clubs. But yeah, at his best, João Cancelo is unstoppable. And we saw that, didn't we, in both games? He was just unbelievable in both games. And the way he nicked the ball, and it was ironic, wasn't it, how he nicked the ball off Szoboszlai's pass, who was, the superstar of Hungary. So he got the ball off him, and then bang, bang, got the ball back, and beautiful finish. Pressure was on, and just fantastic to see. And yeah, if he's at his best, then he's just a huge weapon for Portugal. Of course, defensively, like a lot of modern fullbacks, that's just been a trend over the last few years. They're really focusing more on what they can do in the attacking sense. But that's why Martinez has to put the positions in place and get people to cover for him when he goes forward. And he spends so much time inside, which that's always been a hallmark of what he's done under Martinez. And really, a lot of the good work you saw in these two games was the fact that he was in those positions. He wasn't even at right back, really. He was more inside. And so that a lot of that credit has to go down to Martinez for that. So, yeah, really, really fantastic to see these two guys, firstly in Armenia and then Cancelo continuing on in Budapest.
Let's talk about Martinez for a second, and we'll go right to the Hungary match, because when the starting 11 was announced, a lot of eyebrows in the to the very top of people's heads and everything. Having only one solidified center back in Ruben Dias, playing Ruben Neves in the back with him. I guess my question there is any issues with Gonçalo Inácio heading into that second match, or Renato Veiga? And I know that he brought in Antonio Silva late into that match. But what was the reasoning, I guess, in his post game press conference for maybe playing it a little bit, maybe a little bit loose in terms of the 11, because as we mentioned, he's used many different lineups, many different tactics. If anything, I put this out on social media. If there was a match to kind of perhaps, for lack of a better term, screw around and trying to see if something worked, I thought maybe the Armenia match would have been that match instead of the Hungary match. But what were your thoughts on that 11 and Roberto Martinez's response? What did you think of the question and the answer to why he did what he did in terms of lineup wise against Hungary?
Yeah, it was certainly confusing. When everyone saw the lineup, like I said on my pre-match tweet there, if anyone predicted this one, hands off to you, because I think I had Neves in my side. I had Ruben Neves in the starting side, but I didn't think he was going to play, basically in central defence. Every time you ask Martinez about one of these situations, whether it was João Neves at right back in the Nations League, he'll always basically point to their individual quality, and he'll sort of try and, I guess, diminish the formation and things like that, where people have very sort of fixed ideas in the formation. I just don't like it. I don't know. Again, you always have to be careful about the fitness issues, but he had 3 centre backs on the bench.
Yeah.
And Veiga hasn't played too much, okay, but I just regardless of what he says, and sometimes as a journalist, it's not really for most journalists, it's their job to report what he says, but sometimes I see my role sometimes is just trying to look past what he says in a way. I don't know if that makes sense, but
I maybe discovered like a deeper meaning into what he's saying, kind of like unlayering it.
Sometimes what managers say, it's they're preserved. Not preserved. I don't know how to say this. You're just trying to look past what they say. Sometimes what they say is a bit of a smokescreen. You know what I mean?
Bullshit.
Trying to look more into why they're doing it, regardless of what they say.
Can I give you a theory on Inácio?
Yeah.
Was there any talk of holding him out because he may have been on his way to Saudi Arabia? It did not end up coming to fruition, but he did play that first match. I think the deadline for the Saudi Arabian transfer window was, I want to say it was the 9th, maybe the 10th. We're recording on September 11 here, but could that have been maybe played any role whatsoever to kind of preserve his fitness, or not ruin a transfer if he got injured? I don't know. I'm speculating on that end, because otherwise, like, Renato Veiga made his move already in the summer. Antonio Silva is still in Benfica, so the only logical choice would be for Inácio. And there, it opens up another can of worms, and I'm kind of going on a tangent here, but isn't maybe the bigger talking point that Roberto Martinez is not yet settled on a pairing at center back?
Yeah, exactly. Okay, Inácio, what you said, possibly. It's always a possibility. Veiga, maybe he just wasn't fit enough to play. Maybe Martinez just wanted him in the squad for training and stuff like that. But surely Antonio Silva was fit enough. And, if you were thinking, is it going to be Inácio, is it going to be Antonio Silva to go next to Ruben Dias at the World Cup? This is surely the perfect opportunity to throw Antonio Silva in there. You know what I mean? And these guys don't get to play that often. So for me, I would be thinking you'd want to give them as many opportunities to play together as possible, because surely that's what you're going to do at the World Cup. I just cannot see at the World Cup, unless you've got 2-3 injuries or suspensions, then that Ruben Neves is going to be anywhere near central defence. I don't see it. So therefore, I don't see why you would do it here. That's just my thinking. I'm not the manager of Portugal, mate.
Not yet, Matthew. Not yet.
You've always got to keep that in mind. And keep in mind, they dominated this game pretty much. I mean, it was just the timing of the goals.
I thought they dominated. I thought they looked better in terms of it was two goals, and that was it. And there was nothing really that Hungary did much else other than the 2 goals. I thought that Portugal dominated play from start to finish. It just ended up needing 3 goals to get it done. But I was much more impressed. Not impressed, but I just thought they played and dominated in a more impressive fashion, I guess, than the Armenia game, because the quality of Armenia is not up to par with Hungary or with Ireland. But the stats on paper say one thing, but all of a sudden you have to figure out how do you come back from getting 2 goals scored on you, and they did. But sorry, I didn't mean to get in there.
No, it's cool. I mean, it's funny how we're talking about Ruben Neves at centre back. That's the main talking point. And of course, before the game, everyone's talking about it. And then during the game, you're looking at it more closely. And of course, the first goal kind of gets played out to him. The winger, crosses it in, and then Vitinha, I think, João Palhinha is like 1.9, Ruben Neves 1.8, and I think Vitinha is like 1.72. But the fact is that he's not going to play João Palhinha or probably Ruben Neves in central midfield anyway. So whenever you get these situations and you got one of the midfielders dropping back, João Neves and Vitinha are short.
Yeah.
So, and if you had another centre back in that situation, would it have really made much difference? And then in the second goal, of course, you're looking at it again, and the cross comes in, and Varga just gets in front of Ruben Neves. And of course, it's easy to say, okay, well, that happened because Ruben Neves was there, but you just don't know if Antonio Silva was in that position. Maybe same thing happens. So it's kind of difficult to go that hard on the goals coming down to Ruben Neves being in central defence. But of course, it's things that people are going to be looking for and pay more attention to.
Sure.
So look, we discussed it enough. It is what it is. I think, if you look at I don't usually read the comments, but I had a look at the comments for this one, and most people are pretty, sharing the same opinion. I'm sure, most casual observers and supporters of Portugal are. But, it was 90 minutes. There was a lot of good things to take out of this game. Bernardo Silva was solid. He played a big role in the match. Cancelo, we've already talked about. And what's been really good about these 2 games, Danny, is that, Nuno Mendes and Bruno Fernandes really haven't done much, or they haven't stood out as much as they usually do. So for Portugal to be quite dominant and for those 2 players not to have to get involved that much, I think is also a pretty big positive. And yeah, I'm not sure that there's much more we could discuss if you got any more. Just another thing, it's interesting when you're heading down to the press conference that, you're sort of thinking about what's my question going to be. And you've always got to have a backup question or 2, just in case someone else gets it in ahead of you. And you kind of know what the question is going to be about Ruben Neves, but you can't forget the fact that they won the game. They won the game. One of the probably the most difficult game in the group. This Puskás Arena, mate. You don't see no Ronaldo fanboys. You saw probably more Ronaldo jerseys in Armenia, and when you go to all of these other stadiums, Hungarians couldn't care less, mate. They've got a proud history. They've got a huge supporter base there. They make a lot of noise. This wasn't an easy game, regardless of Hungary's form, regardless of sort of the class of each team. Hungary have some good players, but they pretty much shut down Kerkez. Szoboszlai didn't really have that much impact. So it's difficult, and so I just ended up asking him about Cancelo, because he was sensational. So it's a tough one, but I think we've probably covered it pretty well. It's easy to jump on the Ruben Neves narrative, but there was a lot else to it. But it goes down to basically what Martinez has always done, and it's almost to be expected of him at this point. And we also talked about that, I guess, before, in the fact that I'd like a bit more continuity. And yeah, we talked about the situation in central defence. So we'll see what he does in the next games, mate.
Yeah, sometimes it's not about how, it's about how many in terms of wins. So we'll take 6 points always, and I guess figure it out on the back end. But I did want to talk a little bit about Martinez at the helm versus Fernando Santos in this sense. I mentioned the 32 matches under Martinez. I believe Fernando Santos, according to my research here, 109. And in terms of non-friendly victories, total victories for Fernando Santos is at 68, but competitive victories 51, whereas Martinez, I believe, is at 22. Out of the 25 wins, he's got 22 competitive wins. I bring that up to say, in the 51 wins under Fernando Santos in competitive matches, Portugal came back from being down 6 times to win the match. In almost 30 less games, Roberto Martínez has already done that 4 times, including 3 of the last 4 matches if you count the Spain match with going to PKs. But, the game against Hungary, the final against Spain in the Nations League, the semifinal against Germany in the Nations League, and against Scotland in group play. What does that tell you, or if anything, about either, mentality, tactic, talent under Martinez versus under Santos? Does 4 comeback wins in more than or less than half the time that Fernando Santos has been was the manager? Does that say anything about or say anything to you about Martinez and the mentality under Martinez with this national team?
I think it's clear that Martinez is a much better manager than Fernando Santos. You don't have to be a genius manager to win these tournaments sometimes. You just got to be in the right place at the right time, have a bit of luck. I don't think anyone ever thought that Fernando Santos was a genius tactician or even a magician of a motivator or anything like that. It's a tricky one because you could say, why are you conceding first? Stop conceding first.
Sure.
But, no, I think there's something in that. Yeah, I think that tactically, Martinez can find ways to turn things around. And I just go back to that answer he gave me on the question where I asked him in Armenia, have you noticed after the U18 Nations League? Because keep in mind, he doesn't see these players for a few months at a time. And so I was thinking something to ask him, and I thought I'm interested in that. Has he noticed a spring in their step, let's say, or they just something different after winning that Nations League? Has that given them something? And I didn't expect his answer to say he noticed it after conceding against Germany. So that makes me almost want to go back and watch that game again and the replay, and to really, try and see what he was talking about by watching that game again. But yeah, I think that some of the things he's doing. I already talked about Cancelo and the way that he's using him, and the way that that's directly resulted in basically that match-winning goal he scored in Hungary. So I think some managers can get a bit too overcomplicated at times. You look at the new Braga manager. That's just a classic case of they're just trying to be too clever. So it's a fine balance sometimes of thinking outside the box. And it's also difficult in his situation that, like I said, he only has these players for a couple of games here and there. It's difficult to sort of nail down things like you would in a club. So did I answer your question?
I mean, yeah, you're there. I mean, I just found it fascinating because, football, soccer is it's not a game where there's ebbs and flows in terms of who's winning and then who's losing. I mean, there are games where it's very, very low scoring, and even when it's a high scoring game, it's I would consider the Hungary-Portugal match at 3-2 to be a high scoring game because 5 goals is not something that you see a lot, especially in a competitive match. But with that said, there's still something that I see with this team. And again, I feel that, I've been doing this podcast now since 2018. The reoccurring theme is that, in terms of talent, every year this team gets better and better and better. It's deeper. So, I guess the comeback wins coming more frequent than they did with Fernando Santos could be a thing where it's because there's better talent and they are more prepared to meet the moment and come back from a deficit, and all these deficits, by the way, are 1 goal deficits. Like they weren't down 2-3-0 and then coming back to win 4-3. I mean, these are 1-goal deficits, but as you mentioned, and I'm glad you asked what you did and his response. I mean, it makes sense. Like, you could see confidence never wavered in that Germany match, and it carried over to Spain, even when they went down against Spain. I think there's a confidence in this team that perhaps was waning under Fernand Santos, and now maybe is at full bore with under Roberto Martínez, just based on results and feeling that they're really never out of it. Maybe that's the underlying thing with me, is that you just don't feel like you're ever out of a game with this current collective team, because a goal can come at any moment. You just saw the answering of João Cancelo when Hungary tied it with 6 minutes left to go in regulation, and then 2 minutes later, boom, there's your game winner. So maybe the confidence level is at a higher level as well, to go along with the talent level.
Well, yeah, and thanks for bringing that up, because I sort of thought about it when you asked your question, but I didn't really go into it. But, at international level, tactics, I think, are a bit overvalued at times, and it's more motivation and just atmosphere is maybe undervalued. And I think, if you sort of weigh up Fernando Santos and Roberto Martínez, like Martinez, he's a much better motivator. He's much more kind of positive guy, you know what I mean? And I would say he would probably be instilling a bit more belief in these players, not just individually, but collectively. And so that's probably a reason why not only is he a superior tactician to Santos, but, he's probably just a better motivator. He's just more upbeat, you know what I mean? He's just a bit more positive guy. He's a bit more, he's, how do I say it without being too disrespectful to Santos? Like, a bit more of a worldly guy, you know what I mean? It just seems he understands, what these players have been through, maybe especially the younger ones, maybe. I would sort of lean towards that. So, overall, I would say all those things contribute to the fact that they've been able to overturn some of these deficits and show that belief and just keep going. But eventually, it might come back to bite you, Stop conceding first, mate.
Yeah, I would say, I mean, again, if you don't have to do it, you shouldn't have to. I agree. I agree with you there. But I guess for me, it's just, you look at where the team is at right now. And again, confidence is very high. I thought this is the first time you and I are talking since they won the Nations League. When they won in 2019, the tournament was a bit Mickey Mouse, right? It's just, this is a glorified friendly. This doesn't have any cachet. This is just a money grab for UEFA, and all those things can still be true in terms of the money grab. But the tournament now, no one's sitting their star players anymore like they did in 2019, and to come back and to come back in both matches, in the semi and the final, to beat Germany in Germany, to beat Spain, who for all accounts may be the world's best team, with the next great superstar. I think that carried some weight in the positive for this national team. And I mean, who knows what the future holds? Hopefully next summer, when Portugal is hopefully playing in the World Cup. But I would say that if there's a term out here in the States, the vibes are immaculate right now with this national team, and that can go a very, very long way in getting them prepared for next summer. And I don't think there's a national team in the world that would like to see Portugal on their schedule, given the fact that the talent is in abundance, the confidence is very high, and you really can't say that Portugal's ever out of a game right now based on the way that they have been playing in the last few months. Yeah,
I was joking a bit there. I mean, of course, in the big tournaments, you will concede, you will go behind. You know what I mean? And of course, it's much easier when you just go out there and smash teams 5-0, but it's just not going to happen all the time. So yeah, I was joking a little bit there, Danny, but yeah, it has been important, and especially in that Nations League. So yeah, when they get to crunch games in the tournaments, hopefully that's a factor, and hopefully they'll look back on all those things, and even this game in Hungary, and then they'll be able to keep doing it when it really matters.
Portugal sitting atop of Group F in UEFA World Cup qualifying. Portugal with 6 points. Armenia sitting in second place with 3. Hungary with 1 point, and Republic of Ireland also with 1 point. October 11th is the next time that you will see the Seleção play a qualifier. That will be at home. I'm sure Matthew is happy about that. Let's travel this time. Both games will be at the Alvalade in Lisboa. October 11 against Ireland, and then finishing up the home and away fixture with Hungary on October the 14th.
Sorry, Danny, they just announced that game will be in Porto, that one after the Dublin.
Oh, okay. Then that is, because I'm reading this off of good old ESPN. So that's on me.
Against Armenia, isn't it? I think.
Oh, the Armenia match is in Porto.
Yeah, the one after Dublin.
Okay, so the 2 matches in October will be at Sporting Stadium in Lisbon, and then the to finish off qualifying, it'll be in Porto against Armenia. Well, thank you for that, sir.
No worries.
Any final thoughts in terms of this national team as they head forward to qualifying, and what we hope is a successful qualification for World Cup 2026?
No, I think we've covered it all, mate. Just looking forward to the next games. And I got to say, when Ronaldo hit that penalty in Budapest and he started running over, I was laughing. Not in I was just laughing with happiness and joy.
We haven't even talked about him at all in this episode.
It's amazing.
Let's talk about There's this kid that they're playing up front, Matt. I don't know if you've heard. Real lanky fellow. Maybe he should play center back to help with the height issue. But what a banger he had in during qualifying, and scoring again. 5 consecutive competitive matches now. Not sure when the last time he did that in a Portugal shirt. It's great. He's playing with a sense of levity that he has not had in a while. And I'm guessing it has a lot to do with probably enjoying what is, the twilight of his international career, because he knows it's coming. We all know it's coming. So why not enjoy it and just, be in great form while doing it?
Well, the discussion for how long was, should he be a starter in this team? Should he even be in the team? And I tried to tell people with Fernando Santos and the fact that Fernando Gomes wasn't going to sack him before the World Cup. Honestly, this was kind of obvious surely about 10 years ago, that Ronaldo, through what he's done in his career, not only club but for country, like, he's earned the right to play as long as he wants, right? This was kind of, for me, it was just obvious. So all the talk about should he start, shouldn't he not, it's kind of irrelevant in a way. And he just keeps sort of proving people wrong. And of course, the doubters will say, "Oh, these are against bum teams," but he scored in the Nations League finals, mate. Yeah. And of course, they'll point to his record in the international tournaments, stuff like that. Okay, I see it, I get it, but like I said, it doesn't change the fact that he is just a legend of the game. He's Portuguese, and if he wants to keep playing to the World Cup, then that's just what's going to happen. And Portuguese supporters, just as they have, seen him bail the country out on many, many times, you've got to go through the good and the bad. I've always tried to say that supporting your national team should be like your family. It should be like taking your boy to go and play under 15s. You support them through good and bad. I've always thought that the national team should try and be the same. So yeah, it's been great to see him, score some goals. And some of the journalists are looking at me. I was just cracking up when he ran towards the corner, because he's right in front of the Hungarian supporters there. The Portuguese supporters are way up in the top there in Budapest. But I just thought it was just, I'm so happy. And I really, just like I don't try not to take for granted the fortunate position I'm in to go to these games and to ask Martinez questions in the press conference. And I just always try not to be too complacent and to realize that, it's a privileged position to see Ronaldo live, to score for the national team. It's a gift, and I try not to forget that.
It's funny in a way, seeing how dejected he was after losing in the World Cup in 22 at Qatar in that game against Morocco. I mean, we're looking at what will be almost 3 years once we get to the winter here. But for all intents and purposes, there was like, is that the last time he wears the shirt? Is that the last time? Is this the time he walks away? So much going on in his career at that point. All the crap that he had to deal with Manchester United. This was prior to the move to Al Nassr, and he's almost like, I don't want to say he's reinvented himself in a way, but it's just like I think you kind of nailed it, Matthew. It's like he just continues to prove doubters wrong. And I've been vocal about me thinking that he either shouldn't play 90 or maybe it's time for him to, or the federation to maybe move on. I'm guilty of it because I'm not a journalist. I'm a fan who does a podcast, and I'm very I'm a prisoner of the moment kind of guy. But I'm with you. I'm enjoying this Ronaldo because again, I can just see that there is a sense of calm with him and a sense of enjoyment that maybe he didn't have before, simply because of the amount of pressure that was on him. And maybe he's playing with the pressure off now, knowing that he has a much better supporting cast and he doesn't have to do it all on his own. Wish that this was the case where he had this kind of quality on his team maybe 5-10 years ago. But I'm just enjoying seeing him playing the way he is and contributing still. And I would have bet probably every dollar I had that he would not have been on this roster for 2026 when he walked off against Morocco. And here we are, not only playing at a high level, but starting and contributing and very much being the starting striker for this national team, barring injury, next summer at the World Cup.
Yeah, you're always going to hear about Ronaldo because he generates so much attention, whether it's on ESPN or anywhere else. They know he's going to get clicks, and that's the way it's always been. And negativity sells as well. But yeah, I agree with you. It's been good. Sort of the focus is less off him, and I think Martinez, he brought him off pretty early in Armenia.
I loved it. It. Well, we were up.
Yeah.
What, was it 3-0 at half?
Yeah, I mean, he was on for a hat-trick, wasn't he? So, that might have been a little bit of a statement from Martinez in some ways. But as I say, never ever forget that you just don't know what's going on behind the scenes fitness-wise, Sure. Players carrying a knock. Managers are not going to say anything about it. But yeah, I thought that was a bit of a statement. And hopefully I'll get to sit down with Martinez before the World Cup at some point. I missed the last round of sort of, when he does longer interviews with journalists. I couldn't get to Lisboa and that. But, that'll be one of my questions. That sort of thing. But yeah, it's been fantastic. And I had no doubts after the Euros he would go to the World Cup. And then when he got to 900 career goals, it was obvious, wasn't it? He's going to be looking at 1,000. So, I don't think it's that hard to get into
such a ridiculous number. I
don't think it's that hard to get into the mentality of Ronaldo. Like, long after everyone on this planet is gone, they'll be talking about Ronaldo and watching. Like, he'll be talked about for a long, long time, if not forever, in the world of football. So you can't forget what a global superstar he is. And you see it when you go to these games, especially in the smaller countries. You see all the little kids wearing Ronaldo shirts. It's phenomenal. It really is.
Yep. He's the reason why my two sons on their smashing under 8s and under 11 club teams, just which I'm proud to coach. That's why they were. But it's funny. Just on a tangent here. So the league that we have here in California, we're not at the competitive level yet with my son. So there's no bookings, there's no, they'll call fouls, but they'll just tell the player, not worry about the number of the player. Matthew, I think on my oldest son's team, on my son Eliseo's team, I think we have about 4 or 5 kids wearing the number 7. I think on my son Lucas's team, I think we have at least 2 or 3. And I'll be petty here. I don't see a number 10 anywhere, and I'll just leave it at that. So let's get to a couple of some of the topics here that we wanted to discuss with you, and you kind of brought to my attention as well. You wanted to discuss a little bit about the FPF and President Pedro Proença. I'll kind of let you lead that because I'm interested to see and hear what you want to talk about here.
Well, I just think it was interesting, how there was so much talk when Fernando Santos, and obviously everybody wanted him sacked. And I just kept trying to say, it's just not going to happen because of the way the FPF was at that time under Fernando Gomes. So I think this is a good opportunity for everyone to really just understand what the FPF is, and understand that its connection to the team and to, of course, the main thing is the manager. This is ultimately the biggest thing that people will see as far as, Proença and his influence on the team. You know what I mean? It'll be who and when he chooses to manage Portugal. But no, I think first of all, you've just got to hand it to Proença. You know what I mean? He was a good referee. He managed what was at the Champions League final and the European Championship final in 2012. Very respected. And then I think less than 6 months after retiring as a referee, he became the boss of Liga Portugal. And he was there for about 10 years. And now he's boss of the Portuguese football. It's impressive. You know what I mean? And yeah, they had a little meet and greet, you might say, at the hotel there in Budapest. And I went along with the other journalists, and they invited, I don't know exactly how it works. I think you got to be I think you might have to pay for it, to get a special access to certain things, as a Seleção supporter or socio, whatever it is. So yeah, they had a few people come into the hotel there, and Proença came down, shook all our hands, and then he went down to talk to some of these supporters. And then Martinez come down, and so the supporters there could have a word with him, and it was great to see that connection. You know what I mean? And then yeah, Proença had a bit of a little get together with the journalists, and a lot of cameras there, a lot of obviously, so I guess all I wanted to say was that he's seems like a super nice guy, but I just had some issues with what he was doing in Liga Portugal. First of all, the way that they just sold their souls to the gambling advertisement. I think most of that came in while he was boss of the Liga Portugal. And of course, just the ridiculous disrespect they showed to all supporters and people going to the games with the pathetic way that they released the fixtures, 1 week before, the way they delay the fixtures. If countries like England, Netherlands, whatever, can set their fixtures months in advance as far as what day, what time teams are playing, there's just no reason why Portugal couldn't do that, or Liga Portugal couldn't do that. So that was my sort of criticism. And you've seen that happen now with the FPF while he's been there, because for the European Championship qualifiers, all 10 of them, they released the stadium, right at the beginning, which was kind of unusual for Portugal. But now when they sort of reverted back, where we only found out yesterday that they were playing this last game in Porto. So huge disrespect for everyone going to the game, and obviously the supporters of the opposition team who have to organise travel and hotels and all this sort of stuff. But that's sort of just a by the by. But I just think it's interesting that, people were sort of so out of touch with Fernando Gomes. And really, if you want to look at this in a different situation, it's really just politics, as much as it's about selecting the next manager and making sure everything's working well in the federation and money's getting directed to where it should. It's very much a situation where it's simply politics. And just like politicians need people to vote for them and to back them, it's exactly the same situation here. And just like politicians are need to stay in power, they're always looking at the next job that they're going to try and get. So for Proença, the next position would be, I guess, UEFA. But we also saw, he was sitting right next to Gianni Infantino at the Club World Cup. So people shouldn't forget that it's very much politics when you get to this sort of a level, Danny. You know what I mean? But we've seen some interesting things already with the changes, you might say, since he's taken over. We saw at the Super Tussa down in the Algarve there was a really big production. You know what I mean? The pre-match, they had a woman there singing the national anthem, and it was really, so I think he's done some good things with, trying to sort of modernize maybe the things that are doing with the production and other things off the pitch. I think what he's also doing is just, like anyone would do, like when you get to a position like that, and you want to bring in your own people. You know what I mean? You bring in the people that sort of voted for you, the people that are going to be loyal to you. And that comes at the expense of the people who already occupy those positions. So, I just wanted to, what you're also seeing is that there's a lot of articles on the FPF website that are about him. So he's a guy that's very, very conscious of his image. And of course, that's because, that's key to progressing up the ranks. And obviously he's going to be in this position for quite a while, but he's still a pretty young guy. I think he's about 54 or something. So,
yep, 54.
But I'm sure anyone in that position would be looking, okay, I've got here, what's next? And so really the only logical options is UEFA or even FIFA. I don't see Infantino wanting to give up that position anytime soon. But I just wanted to read you this one of the articles that was in the FPF website in June when the Club World Cup was on. I'm not really going to go into much of it, but I just thought it'd be interesting just to read it out so your listeners can get an idea if they hadn't seen it already. So it was titled Pedro Proença watched Benfica in Miami. The president of the FPF, Pedro Proença, watched this morning in Miami at the Hard Rock Stadium the match between Benfica and Boca Juniors, which marked the debut of the Reds in the Club World Cup, accompanied by the president of Benfica, Rui Costa, and the president of FIFA, Gianni Infantino. Proença follows the meeting of the new competition with the FIFA seal. The top leader of Portuguese football, it should be remembered, has already watched in the early hours of last Monday the goalless draw between Porto and Palmeiras. It should be noted that the leader of the FPF will also participate in the FIFA Football Executive Summit and meet again with the president of FIFA, Gianni Infantino, before returning to Lisbon. The Reds will play, still in the group stage, with the Australians from Auckland City and the Germans from Bayern Munich. So, Danny, I'm just going to let the listeners read into that what they will. All I will say is I had no idea Auckland was in Australia. So that's news to me. I always thought Auckland was the biggest city in New Zealand. So maybe whoever wrote this article, they might need one of those old style globes of the world, or maybe Google, maybe ChatGPT, Danny. Maybe you could go on to ChatGPT and say, where is Auckland?
It could be easier. It could be easier if it's a flat map, but I'll leave that to other people to figure out.
But look, I'm not going to go. I'm not going to go into any why. I just think it's interesting that I think people were a little bit out of touch with Fernando Gomes, and so Proença is going to be in this position for a long time. Of course, there was a lot of talk about him maybe wanting to bring in Jose Mourinho, make his mark on this.
That was going to be my next question here. Do you think that had the Nations League not gone the way it did, that we may have Jose Mourinho right now as Portugal manager?
It's a strong possibility. I mean, like I said, if you correlate people in these positions to politicians, or even you could even take it a step higher, Danny. So back in the day, your kings and queens, how when you would invite kings and mainly kings of other countries, you'd roll out the red carpet and you'd want to, show them how awesome your country or your castle or your palace was. And in a way, when you're the leader of the FPF, when you're going around to different countries, whether it's Hungary or Armenia, it's very much a similar situation where it's a lot of prestige and sort of image, you know what I mean? And of course, building relationships and forming alliances, let's say. And it's interesting. It's interesting. Like, I've got nothing bad to say about Proença. He's a nice guy, shook my hand, but I just wanted to lay all those things out there so that in the future, people have a bit of a better idea what actually goes on. So in case you get into another situation where they're desperate for the manager to be sacked and maybe not really understanding why it's not happening.
Fair enough. Fair enough. One of the reasons why we have had you on so many times on the pod, and the initial reason was your work with covering the younger Seleção squads, the under 21s, the under 17s, the under 19s, all these competitions and all these matches for the future of the senior side. Again, you were very busy once again this summer with covering the under 17s and the under 21s. Obviously, the under 21s right now in trying to qualify for Euro 2027 for under 21s, and then obviously the under 17s had an amazing summer themselves. What can you kind of take away from both of those, as well as a new man in charge of the under 21s now?
It was awesome. That was my fourth under 17 European Championship in a row, Danny. I'd seen them, heartbreak, and the previous one they lost the final, but yeah, they got it done here. It was in Albania. They beat Albania 4-0, and then they drew with France. And then it was looking bad. They conceded against Germany in a 72nd minute in that third group stage, which would have sent them out. But then they got a couple of goals back to win 2-1 and get to the semis, where they fell behind again twice against Italy, who were the team that beat them in the final the previous year. But they managed to turn it around, showed great belief, did really well to win a penalty shootout, and then in the final they just smashed France 3-0. And it was really good for me. I got to talk to, because I'm the only journalist there, Danny. I can't stress that enough. Portugal do not send one journalist to the tournament, apart from, shame on me, I can't remember her name, but the woman that does the Canal Ons, the TV channel that covers the game. She talks, does all the TV work. But that's a federation employee per se, federation
right?
Owned, I think so. But yeah, the Portuguese journalists don't send anybody there. It's not in there. They don't think it's worthwhile. But anyway, it's good for me, because I obviously I get to know the press officer there, and I can talk to players. So I talked to some players, and I should also mention that I did a podcast on this one. I hadn't done a podcast for a while, but maybe you can put the link in the description.
Yeah,
that
absolutely.
Podcast. I talk about Armenian history. I record myself during the games, so you get commentary for the games, and then you got interviews with players after the game. So quite proud of that podcast I did there. So if anyone's interested, you can go and listen to that and get the lowdown on Portugal winning that tournament. But some really good young players. I'm not really going to go into any of them individually, but what was interesting was that the year before you had Rodrigo Mora and Giovanni Kenda, kind of superstars, guys that really kind of stood out. But in this team, without being disrespectful, there wasn't really any standout players. And it was interesting, it happened they won the finals the day or two after PSG won the Champions League, which was also like a correlation there, because PSG got it done after, your Neymar, Messi, and Mbappe type era. It was more of a collective effort. So really interesting, and if anyone's interested, go and check that out. And of course, now they get to contest the Under-17 World Cup, Danny, which is happening soon. It's in Qatar. The next 5 Under-17 World Cups are all in Qatar. So, I mean, that's bullshit.
Awesome.
But, that's just bullshit. But anyway, that kicks off in, I think, early November, 3rd of November. I think it runs all the way through November. So if anyone wants to keep up with this group, then you can, stay in touch with it then. And the under-21s, Danny, I'd done this tournament a few times. I saw them lose the final against Germany in Slovenia. I saw them get knocked out in Georgia there against England. And this one was in Slovakia. And sorry, just trying to refresh my memory here. They drew 0-0 with France in the first game, played pretty well. Then they just smashed Poland 5-0. And then Georgia had a man sent off really early, Portugal winning that game 4-0. And then huge disappointment in the quarterfinal, because against the Netherlands, Van Bommel was sent off after about 20 minutes. Everybody's thinking, well, okay, this is going to be routine trip to the semi-finals, but it didn't happen. Portugal couldn't score. They couldn't really break down the Dutch defense, which in this game was strong. It wasn't so strong in some of their other games, so a bit unlucky there. And then they conceded in the 84th minute. It was unfortunate. I really don't like talking negatively about Portuguese players, especially the young ones. And if you'll see my report for this game, talked a little bit about João Martinez, who is a nice guy, a good young player, but he's not fast. And when I saw him, he was going to be in the starting side here for the tournament, my confidence on them winning the tournament went down a bit. So unfortunate in that sense. Hopefully he goes on to have a really good future, but he got caught out a bit here. And of course, this was Louis Georges' last match as under 20. He'd been there for what, I think 10 years or more. I mean, he's been a rock as manager for that under 21 side. And again, all the people that work for these teams are super nice guys. You're not criticizing them personally. It's nothing personal. But there was a situation in that game, I think it was against Georgia, where, as I said, Georgia had a man sent off, and it was 2-0, I think, with about 30 minutes to go. And it was hot. It was hot in Slovakia. And there was an instance where Kenda went down. He was had a little problem with his foot. And I just could not understand for the life of me why Louis Georges didn't take him off, get him out of there. I just couldn't understand it. So I asked him in the press conference after the game, like, you'd taken other players off, you'd made changes at halftime. Everyone in the stadium thought this game was over. Why did you leave him on? And he basically said, anything could happen. We're not underestimating Georgia. And Giovanni even said that I've been managing him well. And I'm just thinking, mate, no.
Yeah.
So, it was obvious after that quarterfinal defeat that you were not going to see Louis Georges as a manager of the under-21 side again, especially as we just talked with Proença. That's really one of the key decisions he has to make. And Luis Freire, had a tough time there at Guimarães, but, he's a good guy. He's shown an ability to work with young players, and great for him, happy for him. You know what I mean? It's a good job. It's a pretty secure job. You're working with some fantastic players. We've just seen them now win their first 2 qualifiers. You've got Mora, Kenda, Roger Fernandes. I mean, Mateus Fernandes still is young enough to play for that team. So, yeah, he's got a lot of good players, and hopefully they do well and go a step further and win it, as George was unable to do.
Well, I've always appreciated the work that you do on the quote unquote, lesser known tournaments and stuff like that, because obviously the spotlight's always going to be on the senior side of things and for any of the national teams. So I've always appreciated you kind of being able to be there and seeing the next generation of stars. And it's one of the reasons why I had reached out to you as many years ago, and I'm glad to see that you're still doing it. And just, I don't know, maybe buy a little bit of property in Qatar to just make sure you're not in a van or not in anything this go around. But
I'm a bit selfish in that I'm lucky I can sort of go to some of these tournaments earlier, and if I haven't been to the country, I take the opportunity to see the country. Sure. I certainly did that in Albania. Just did it in Armenia. So when I see the next under-17 in Qatar, 5 of them, I'm like, come on, man, get serious. And the next 2 under-17 European championships are in, I think, Estonia and Latvia. I mean, they border each other. They're right next to each other. Not very exciting countries. So again, I'm not going to hide the fact that a lot of what I do in this journalism world is for selfish reasons. And that's a huge bummer, mate. But anyway.
Well,
we'll see what happens.
You're very. I can see and I hear it in your voice. Like you're very proud and thankful for the opportunity that you do get in terms of covering the sport and being able to go to, even if it's not the best time or the like places that maybe leave a lot to be desired, but you enjoy and are thankful for the opportunity that this job gives you. You have been to how many soccer stadiums in Portugal?
151.
No big deal. What's the mission here, Matthew? Because I'm fascinated by your quest to get to as many as you can.
I just like to do something different, you know what I mean, and keep it interesting for me and fun for me. And going to the Dragão 40, 50 times or Alvalade, for me, that's not much fun.
You'd rather go to Luge anyway, obviously.
Well, okay, my bad. But it doesn't matter what big stadium. I mean, after a while, you look back and it's hard to remember any games, really. It's hard to remember something, usually it's a Champions League game or maybe a game against the other big teams, but they sort of all just blur into one. And so I love Portugal. I've been fortunate to see most of the country. And I thought, wouldn't it be interesting to try and see every team in the top 4 divisions, or, at least attempt it. So I tried. I started and, started to knock them off, especially when I came back to live in Portugal, I was living up near Vila do Conde for a while, and so many teams up there. So I just kept going. And then I got to 100, and then I recently got to 150. And I just have a lot of fun with it. I get to see a new club, different culture, different stadium, different bifana. And, just might learn something new about that region, that part of Portugal. Could be a fallen giant. It could be some team battling in the 5th or 4th division or whatever it is. And it just keeps it fun for me. It makes it interesting for me. You know what I mean? And that's the way I got to keep doing it. A little bit harder now because I'm back in the Algarve. And, last year I pretty much knocked off all the teams in the Algarve, saw a fair few in Beja. So I've got to do, I've got to drive a fair bit now to see new stadiums or travel a bit. So I'm waiting for combinations of games. You know what I mean? Always looking at the fixtures, always trying to figure out, okay, can I go here, there, and trying to plan things. It's not so easy now, but it's just something I like to do. And hopefully there's some people out there enjoy watching my pictures and things on X, which is really the only place. I'm not heaps into promoting myself or anything like that. Everything I do is just for myself and for my own enjoyment and benefit. And if other people, get some enjoyment out of that, then that's cool as well.
All right, so I'm going to play a game with you. You have sent me links to all the campeonatos and the ligas that Portugal has. I'm going to ask you about a club. You're going to tell me if you've been to the stadium or not. Is that cool?
Cool.
All right, let's see. Have you been to? And I'm going to really, really piss some people off with my pronunciations of some of these clubs. But have you been to Rebordose Atlético Club, to the stadium there?
Rebordose, that's near Porto, just east of Porto. The stadium's on top of a big hill, but it's like it's a concrete box. And that was one of the very few times I've ever got to a stadium after kickoff. I can't remember why. It might have been something to do with the timing or something.
Oh, I love that there's stories. Oh, God, this is awesome.
And it's a concrete box. It's really, really interesting. There's not many stadiums. It's just like concrete. But that was an interesting stadium. And I think after that, they ended up playing Braga in a Taça game in the driving rain. But interesting stadium, mainly because it's at the top of a hill. But location-wise, so many teams in that region just east of Porto.
Okay, have you been to the stadium of Brito Sport Club?
No. Brito is right next to Guimarães.
Got him!
Braga there. And for some reason, like they were one of the only teams in that division that they were on my list for ages, and I could have easily got them when I was living up there. But for some reason, it just never was convenient. They never came up on the schedule, so that's pissing me off. They're always hanging around 4th division, Brito, but it's on my list, Danny. It's on my list.
Oh, okay. This is gonna be a tough one here. So again, let's. Have you been to the stadium of Lusitano Ginásio Clube Moncarapachense?
Moncarapachense, that's in Moncarapaccio down in it's in the Algarve, but it's starting to get into the Alentejo. It's really dry. It's a tiny place. The smallest stadium or the smallest stand. It's just like a little temporary thing you would put up for some, thing that's only going to last for one day. And it was just amazing because they're in the 4th division. And they were fighting pretty hard. They were in a chance for a promotion not long ago. And it's just amazing that a club from a tiny place like that are doing so well. So that was really what I took out of it. But yeah, interesting club.
Have you been to, I don't want to click that. Have you, I'll give you an easy one. Have you been to, or when was the last time, I should say, that you went to the stadium for Chaves?
Chaves. I went there pretty early on when I did one of my missions before I came back to live here. I saw them play against Porto there when Porto went ballistic late on, and that was one of the games where Sergio Conceição just refused to talk to the press, and I think the players, they refused the players to talk to press, so they got fined. But yeah, Chaves is a cool place. And I did a podcast when I used to do mission podcasts. People can try and find that on Portugal, where I talked about Chaves a bit. They found recently a Roman thermal bath because they were going to build an underground car park. And so right under the plaza in the middle of town, while they were doing the work to try and build this underground car park, they found a Roman thermal bath. Like, it'd been there for almost 2,000 years. No one knew about it.
Oh, wow.
And it was actually a special bath. It wasn't like a communal one where people would just go and clean themselves. It was like a special medicinal one where people would come from long distances, especially soldiers and people with ailments that they just couldn't fix, in the belief that this special water coming from that bath would heal them. And they'd done a really good museum there, which is built on top of it, and the water's still coming out as it has been for thousands of years. And they've got the Roman bridge there. Chaves, right? I like Trás-os-Montes, the northern region of Portugal, and Chaves is a must-see place for anyone who wants to see all of Portugal. But yeah, Chaves, it's a cool stadium. They're pretty passionate there, although you saw it boil over when some of the idiot supporters ran onto the pitch not long ago and assaulted some players, or it got really ugly. But there's always a minority of idiots sometimes, spoil it for the majority.
Just so everybody knows, like, Matthew gave me the links to the league sites. He did not give me the links to these specific teams. So the fact that he's able to give us a little bit of a nugget for the places that he has been is phenomenal. So I appreciate that.
Just finishing off Chaves, it's really unique because when you go up the stand, they got like a little bar area like up the top of the stand, and it's really and to the press area you've got to climb up these little ladders. And each section for the journalists you can only fit about 4 or 5 of them. So it's really old school, school. The only one I'd seen before that, the old stadium in Varzim used to be like that, but they've renovated the stadium. So Chaves has a lot of unique stuff about it, not only the stadium, but the city. Yeah.
Are you going to write a book about your stadium travels? Because I think like just like these little nuggets of like it'd be awesome.
I've got photos and that. Maybe if I have time. It's obviously not going to make me any money, so you've got to weigh up the time it's going to take. And
I'll buy a book. All right, I'll buy a book. Listen, I need 5 people who are watching or listening when that book comes out. Say that you. So if you want to make your nut nice and quick, I guess that's how we do it. One of the places that you've gone to a lot, which is close to my heart, is the island of Terceira in the Azores. So I want to ask you if you've been to a couple of the clubs here. First off, Sport Club Lusitania. Been?
Yeah, they were in the 3rd division. They just got relegated back to the 4th division. But yeah, that's a bigger stadium in Terceira. And like, just when I think I've seen it all, Danny, just when I think, why do I do this? You see something different. And there's a particular guy there, a supporter. If you watch the games, you'll hear him, because he takes a pigeon to the game, right? He takes a pigeon because their logo is a pigeon, and he has it like a string attached to it so it doesn't fly away, and it's wrapped around his finger, and he basically walks around with this pigeon, and he goes up to the away fans, and he's very much by himself because no one wants to get that close to him because, I mean, without being disrespectful, he's a few cents short of $1, Danny. A couple of beers short of a 6-pack. But he is loyal and he doesn't give up, mate. When they're losing, and he walks up and down and he's trying. He's like the one-man motivation machine. He's obviously been going there for a very long time, and that's certainly something unique about Lusitania dos Açores. I tried to get a picture of that stadium from the top, and I had to walk through these fields of cows and dodge cow shit, and I tried my best. If you go on
welcome to Terceira, buddy.
If you get onto my Twitter feed and you see the pictures I took, I tried to get a photo from above to get a nice picture of it, but to get that picture wasn't easy, man. And when I came back, my girlfriend was having a meeting with about 30 different cows. They'd all walked over to say hello to her, and that was an interesting sight. Yeah, to get to that, I had to walk down this dirt track and jump fences, and I got all these memories. But yeah, Lusitania is the biggest stadium there, the biggest club in Terceira.
What was your favorite stadium? If it wasn't the JP2 stadium in Angra, what was your favorite stadium to check out?
JD. There's 2 Lagences. There's one I think in
Juventude Sportiva Lagence, and then of course
they're called the Yellow Submarine. It was pissing down. It was cold. People might not know there's been a lot of plane crashes in Terceira, and there was a big
okay. We don't have to
plane crash right near there with I can't remember what it was, but anyway, they had a bar there. They've all got bars, but around the back, again, you can look at my photo, but they've got like this this staircase, just this random staircase that leads up onto the ceiling of the press or the stand. It's a tiny little stand. So you just you walk up this staircase, like this makeshift staircase, and you can see cows out the back and stuff. And they were doing really well. They were about to get promoted too, so the atmosphere was really good, and not many people there, not a huge supporter base, but for those reasons, it was my favorite stadium, my favorite experience, I guess, in Terceira. Yeah.
Yeah, my when we were there in 22, my dad bought a couple of T-shirts for my boys, so which they still wear. I think he bought like adult sizes, and now they've shrunk after so many washes. But and then when he went in, I want to say 17, maybe 19, my dad brought me back the Sport Club Angrense jersey here, and I'm gonna put it up to the camera. So it's definitely like, much like Santa Clara did in its early days. It's a Benfica, kind of supportive club, but it's you see the SCA instead of the SLB. So yeah, was able to get that jersey, but that
was the first stadium I went to there. It's great location, right under the Fortaleza. You know what I mean? And pretty big support group there. They've got a bar on the corner of the stadium, and most of the fans just go there.
Buddy, there's bars everywhere in the stadium.
They have beer in their hand the whole game, mate, watching from the corner. That's very common. But yeah, that was one of my memories of that stadium, and it was a local derby. I think they were playing Praense, which is when I went there, they were playing it was a local Terceira derby. So yeah, that's a cool stadium in Angra de Heroísmo.
Yep.
Yeah, cool club.
Well, we appreciate all the traveling you do for the supporters of Portuguese football and for the Seleção, Matthew, and I can't thank you enough for coming on the show, and we'll get you back on between either October and November, and we'll talk about what this national team does and qualifies hopefully for the World Cup and whatever other travels you might be on. Well, I mean, obviously you're going to Qatar, right?
I've got some interesting things happening at the end of the year, mate, but I never like to talk about it before I get there because I don't like to jinx things. But yeah, I'll be doing I'll be getting out there at the end of the year around November time. And I got a fair few trips for the rest of this year. So looking forward to it. And thanks for having me on again. And congratulations on getting to 100, mate. That's a significant achievement. I really enjoyed seeing all that personal stuff you do with your family and that little get together you had recently. And seeing the evolution and progression in your podcast has been really good, and very happy for you for that. And I just wanted to say that how lucky you are, Danny, how lucky you are that I wasn't over there when you had this Bifana competition, because I would have smoked all of you, mate. I would have smoked you.
Well, okay, you make a good Bifana?
Oh man, I'll take it to the next level, Danny. I'm not good at many things in this world, but making Bifana, that's one of them, man. It's right up there.
Well, maybe maybe to go along with that book that you may never write. I think maybe some sub chapters of like where's the best Bifana to go when you go
Oriental in Lisboa.
No, look at this guy. He knows it.
Flame grilled, mate. Flame grilled.
I love that. What's the secret to a good Bifana?
There's so many variations, up north they like to soak them in, really wet,
Yeah, I'll tell you right now. I asked the question knowing that I already had the answer. It's the bread. If the bread sucks, the Bifana is no good.
Sometimes the meat's a bit too fatty, you know what I mean? But you can either go the Porto style where they just literally, it's like a soup. It's like a Bifana soup, with a beer sauce and that, or you can do the flame grilled, which is kind of unique. Or there's different styles, but yeah, I can't tell you how I do mine because that would just be,
no, we can't.
The secret will be out, mate.
The secret dies. The secret dies with Matthew.
If you want the best, I think Oriental in Lisboa, they're cool stadium too, looking down onto the Tagus. If you're ever in Lisboa and you want to go to a low division game, Oriental, get the Bifana, and then thank me later, mate. That's it.
I almost asked about Oriental. You're the best, dude. Hey, safe travels as always, and thanks for joining us, and Forza Matthew.
Cool, man. Take it easy. Catch you later.
Alrighty, that was Matthew Marshall of Portugal.net. You can follow Matt on Twitter and on X at Noobs Corp. That's NOOBZCORP. Such a plethora of stuff that we talked about. Can't thank him enough for his time. And yeah, in terms of the Seleção, looking good. 6 points. 4 matches left to go. 3 of those at home. October 11 and October 14 against Ireland and Hungary, respectively. Quite possibly, this could be wrapped up by that game against Hungary if Portugal seek out another 6 points and sit on 12 with 2 games to go. Again, my thanks to Matthew Marshall of Portugal.net for joining us on episode number 105 of the Seleção podcast. We are a proud partner of Portugal.net, and as always, Força Portugal!